Hello and welcome to the Leverage Podcast. I'm Paul Richard, your host. And today we have special guest Rose Backlin with White Magnolia Real Estate with us. Rose, it's good to have you with us. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
It's awesome to have you here. And we met at Keller Williams. Goodness, was it 9 years ago, maybe 8 years ago? It seems like it's been quite a while.
Yes.
And so we've worked together. We don't work together anymore directly, but we sure see a lot of each other. So I'm excited to have you on today. Well, let's start out with getting to know Rose a little bit. Tell us a little bit about Rose's background and eventually how you got into this whole crazy business of real estate. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm a local here, so I was born and raised here in the Branson area and grew up here. I went to a school that was only K through 8th, and so then I got to pick my high school. Went to Hollister here locally, and that's where I met my husband. So been married at my high school sweetheart. Been together since we were 16. I don't know what the math of that is. How many years? I think it's like 20 years or something we've been together. And my biggest focus is just really on my community and things like that. The reason I got into real estate was I started doing marketing for another agent, and then I learned that you really needed to have your license to be able to answer the phones or anything. So I got my license. They needed help, so I went and showed a house, sold it, and never looked back.
Very good. Very good. And so you've had the opportunity to serve a lot of people, and I've watched you do some great things. And definitely your heart is to serve people. One of the ways you served people was when you were with the Forsyth Chamber of Commerce, I know. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and your leadership there? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I joined the Forsyth Chamber back in, I think it was 2019, I think. I just joined because I have a friend that likes to pressure me into joining things and networking, who you should probably have on here as well. And
Okay.
so I joined in, I think, 2019, and then I lost my dad in 2020, June 2020, and I really went through a bad depression. So that friend that pressured me into joining pressured me to get me out of the house again and made me start going to board meetings and things like that. And somehow I got on the board and became president. And so that's how that kind of went down. And it's been an amazing experience to be able to help the community and things like that. I really wanted to focus on Forsyth because that's where my nephews were going to school at. And so we were spending a lot of time over there. And I really like the community and how small it is. And that's really how I got started with the Forsyth Chamber. And so I've been involved with them now for, probably 7 years. I was president for 3 years and now past president for 2 years. So
Very
I'm
good.
coming
And during your
finally to an
time, I
end.
mean, I'm sorry?
I'm finally coming to an end at the end of this year.
Oh, okay. And Forsyth's such a great community, and I know you have a big heart for that. And so can you mention a few of your accomplishments while leading that group as you did? Because I saw so many things you were involved with, and I'd love to just hear some of the accomplishments that you had during your tenure there.
We've had so many accomplishments and great things, and it's hard for me to brag on myself. That's the hardest thing
Go
for me
ahead.
to do.
That's what this is about, okay?
Right? Yeah. So we have officially, so I created a second festival. We were doing a bunch of small little festivals, and instead of doing that, I went ahead and just combined everything into one big festival. So that way, why put effort into these little tiny festivals when you can just do one big festival? So we now have the Spring Fling Festival. We are on year 4, I believe, of that, where we block the main street of Forsyth and have a big craft festival for the whole year or for the whole day. It has a car show. We've also added the strongman competition to it. One of the very first things I did was we got a billboard to welcome you to Forsyth. So that was one of the very first big accomplishments I did. We got the spring fling. What else do we have? Really my biggest accomplishment that isn't something that you can really see. It's really just the connection between the chamber and the people and the community and the city. Prior there wasn't very much connection between the city and the chamber. They each kind of did their own thing and they didn't communicate well. And so when I came in, that's one of the first things I did was go to a city meeting and ask, say, hey, this is what we're doing, if you want to help or kind of thing. And I think that's probably one of my what I think is my biggest accomplishment is just that connection between the city and the chamber and open communication between them because I think that's so important for all of the like entities of the city to work together to make things happen. And it helps our festivals run smoother as well as just everyday communication between the city and the chamber. And so, yeah, I mean, I can't measure that or anything, but I really think that that's been one of my biggest accomplishments is that communication.
Yeah, that's great because, governments and entities like that, they tend to silo, right? You make decisions based on what's best for that particular group or that particular area or whatever the case may be. So I can see where that is a huge deal. What I DJ'd one event for you. What was that? Was that
So
like
that
the
was
Harvest
Harvest
Festivals?
Moon.
Harvest
Yeah.
Moon. Okay. Is
Yep.
that no longer going on?
No, we still have it. Oh yeah, we still have it. Harvest Moon has been around for a while. It's in the fall. And so during COVID, it went small and then it's grown back up again since COVID. But we have a car show, we have the festival, we also have the strongman competition during that. Last year, we had a garden tractor pull during it as well, some inflatables. I tried to do chicken poop bingo, but people didn't really catch on to that. Ugh. So
Is that like cow patty bingo? Okay.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I tried, I sure did, and people just looked at me like, "What is this crazy lady doing?" I thought it was hilarious, I loved it, but nobody really caught on to it, and then we also
That's
did a dunk
awesome.
tank, so we put our sheriff, Brad Daniels, into the dunk tank, for about an hour that morning, and then after that, we put multiple deputies in there, so that was pretty
That's
cool too.
cool. That's very cool. And I know you're a big fan of, a community law enforcement. And so I think you saw it just on Daryl, from the Branson Police Force, Donathan had a great interview. And so both Jesse, my wife, and I are going to participate in that next go round here this fall. We're super excited about that. So part of that was inspired by you, my darling. So yeah, it's definitely something, and we'll get together with the sheriffs next time, next round, and that's so exciting. Well, okay, so you're participating in the community events. I know that's a big thing for you. Don't you get involved in some nonprofits as well? Is that something that you've been doing?
Yeah, so I do all kinds of nonprofits. I have my own nonprofit, and then I also chair, I guess, a couple other nonprofits. So my personal nonprofit is called Don't Give Up Gear. That is based in memory of my dad, who died in June of 2020 of cancer. So what I do is every quarter I take 30 bags to our local cancer center, and they have just anything you can imagine. And pretty much whatever the season whatever you think it is. It all started with after my dad died, going in there and the nurses telling me how he would make people laugh and he just made the environment so much better. And so I really wanted to keep that going because that's really who he was. And you could be in a bad mood and he'd crack a joke and it'd be funny. And they told me stories about how he would be sitting there taking his chemo, and then somebody new would come in and they were so nervous, and he would sit there and talk to them and just make them feel so welcome and just so much better about being there. And so I got with my brother and we started this. It started out with just little makeup bags, and we just put, like Kleenex and pins and cough drops and that kind of stuff in there. And then as people heard what I was doing, because of course I didn't tell anybody what I was doing. It kind of grew into a bigger thing. So now I actually have like big tote bags that I take in there, and the Forsyth Elks actually stores all my stuff for me, and every
Wow.
quarter they help me put everything together. Yeah, and so they gave me a grant last year, so I was able to buy enough items to fill the bags for 2 years. Yeah, and so now it's always, during the wintertime, we make sure they have hats and gloves and things like that. Also, during the spring, we make sure they have hand sanitizer and sunscreen and things like that. Also, the nurses there, they know if there's anything in particular that the cancer center needs, just to give me a call or email me and I can get them some stuff. So there was an instance where they didn't have, there was, I guess the instance was, the lady was in there and had an accident that she had to wear paper clothes home. And it was really embarrassing. And so they reached out to me and they were like, hey, is there any way you can help us get some sweatpants, some sweatshirts, that kind of thing, in case this happens again? And within 48 hours, I reached out to my friends and stuff, and we had them all set up with sweatpants and sweatshirts. So that way nobody ever had to go home and paper pants. Because if I remember right, it was winter and that sucks. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's a lot of things that that nonprofit does for them, as well as, puzzles for the sitting area. And anytime they need a blanket or something, there's another local organization that makes homemade blanket quilts. So I just call them and I'm like, hey, the cancer center needs 3 blankets, and they give them to me to take over for them. So we've made all of those connections with that nonprofit as well. And then, of course, I work with the local law enforcement for their Citizens Academy. I've sat on the Branson one you're about to take. I've sat on their board, and then I have just a month left on the Taney County as their president. And so I do that as well. Then the chamber's a nonprofit, and I'm sure there's more, but those are my main ones right now. I'm
So many things that you got
Yeah,
going on.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's
My heart really goes out to the cancer ones because, we did that in memory of my dad. But, anytime somebody's in need, that's really where my heart is. So, yeah.
Didn't you work with something with, is it jeans and teens or something? Wasn't there
Yep.
one there too?
Yep. I sat on the board for Jeans for Teens as well. Yep. Where they help.
Yeah,
So they raise money all year. And then in high school, you can get a voucher to come get a pair of jeans. Yep. Yep.
very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many great opportunities here to get involved in that. As you know, my wife just is involved in the naturopathic health world now, and so they just formed a nonprofit to be able to basically help people get healthy without use of drugs or that type of thing, if possible. If it's possible for them to recover from some things that way. So just more of a natural approach to it, which in our area of the country, it seems very popular here as well, those types of things.
Yeah, I think I've told you
So,
before, I see a holistic doctor and I
yeah,
go more of a holistic, natural way as well. So, when you get so much medication thrown into you and it's not doing anything, you eventually got to figure something else out.
yeah, a lot of times you're just treating symptoms from the side effects or something, and that type of
Yeah.
thing. So, well,
Yeah.
that's really interesting as well. And I was wondering, on your real estate side, you've landed now with a White Magnolia, and Shan is just a wonderful leader and lady, and she's in one of my networking groups here in the area as well. And so, in your real estate career, what's happening now? What are you seeing as far as buyers and sellers? What's kind of your overall sense about what's going on in the marketplace?
So I really see a difference depending on the price point. So I'm not seeing enough of the low income housing. Of course, the first time home buyers, that housing. And so I feel like that's more of like a seller's market still. And then I'm seeing, once you step up a grade, that seems to be a mix. There's, seeing buyers and sellers there, that kind of thing. But for those first time home buyers, I see them still struggling to find houses. And so that's kind
Agreed.
of,
Agreed.
yeah,
I
it's hard.
it is hard, and I just posted a Dave Ramsey little short, I guess, or clip on Facebook. I guess it was a reel, and he was talking about that. Is that really legitimately we've had inventory shortage for the last 15 to 20 years. Especially in the people that want to get their first home. And a lot of reasons why people are now waiting till later in life to get a home is because it is so expensive, and so it's hard to get into a home these days. And the interest rates haven't helped, right? And just the overall expenses of life and that type of thing. So in your business, what are some of the things you've learned? Now, you've been a realtor. Is it 9 years you've been a realtor now?
Yes.
roughly? Okay. So in the 9 years and you're still in the business, which you're beating out about 95% of the people that get into real estate by staying in it. And I've been in it 20 years, but what are some of the lessons you've learned that have helped make you successful in the real estate business?
Man, well, first off, success depends on how you qualify success.
Sure, sure.
But
It might be survival, right?
yeah, 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 I feel like I've survived real estate. So I feel like just being in the community has really helped me, because people know who I am. They know where my heart is. They feel that they can trust me. I'm not just a postcard coming by. I'm not just a billboard. I'm a real person that actually lives a real life, not something that AI has created or something that some fancy something. So I think that's my biggest tip is to get into your community, get involved. And not everything is, you don't need to be out there flashing yourself around constantly to be successful. And so that's probably my biggest tip is just to get involved in the community because that's where that's where your sphere is. That's where your people are going to come from. And that's where most of my leads come from. And
That's
so
fantastic. At our time at Keller Williams, I learned something from Gary Keller in regards to that. And so a lot of times the highest producers in real estate really don't take home much money. They spend so much money getting leads and on the business that they're not highly profitable in that area. And so Gary had at first he was just bringing up large producers to speak at the various large events that were going on. And then eventually he said, I don't really want to look at your P&L and see are you really profiting very much because some of these guys were doing and girls were doing, 100, 200, 300, 500, 1,000 transactions, and they were only taking home, 100,000 a year or 300,000 a year, which based on the volume should be very high, should be very high of that. So I understand what you're saying. And sometimes I learned early on also from a gentleman that was a coach, a real estate coach up in Seattle. And he taught me that, when you do a listing presentation, a lot of realtors say, hey, I've sold this many houses. I've done this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. And it's a me, all about me, where really in most cases that's important. Yet the client's really concerned about, what's going on for them? What's the current situation in the area? Well, how many homes are selling? So you give them market information. And each personality is a little bit different. Obviously, in a listing presentation, you'd be adoptive or adaptive to their particular personality. But certainly you want to make it more about them and ask the right questions, right? And you're excellent at that. I mean, you really do put yourself into the shoes of the folks that you're working with and that type of thing. And you show genuine concern, and I've watched you closely when we were in the Leadership Academy, for a year we were together doing that, weren't we?
we
And
were.
so at the at the Board of Realtors, so I saw you doing that at every turn in there. So, I compliment you on that. And it's I see as just a huge asset that you have working that way. So tell me a little bit more about, as far as the market right now. Do you see the impact of the interest rate really holding people back, or what do you see as far as that part of it?
So I couldn't completely hear you. Did you say the interest rate?
Yeah, the interest rate. I'm
There you
sorry. Somebody tried to ring in and it,
go.
it
Okay.
uh, took my microphone out. I apologize. Yeah.
Okay. So with the interest rate, I I don't really see an impact that bad. I tell people this, the silly thing, the whole you buy the house, not the interest rate kind of thing.
Yeah.
And interest rates, you can always refinance. So I don't see a big impact on the interest rates as much as I do just the pricing. Everybody keeps looking back to prior to COVID saying, oh, I could have gotten that for this back then, but that we're not there anymore. So that's
Yeah.
reality anymore. So that's really the hardest conversation I'm having with people right now is just well, I'm sorry that you missed out on it, but this is reality now. Prices aren't gonna dip down there anymore.
Right.
And I see a lot of people honestly looking for land now. I saw you had just posted something about looking for land. I have so many
Yes.
calls, people wanting land now, wanting to get out of the city. So that's something big as well that I'm seeing. But for the interest rates, I'm not seeing too much of an impact. It's just that reality of what you could have bought 6 years ago, you can't buy anymore. And so they're like, "Oh, well, maybe we'll save a little bit longer, or maybe we'll wait and maybe the market will change," or they just keep wishing that they could have, but they didn't. So,
Yeah, yeah, and for us, really 2021, 2022 were it was an anomaly from the standpoint that, at least with me, the expectation was that the market would go down, and the exact opposite occurred. In the housing market, it skyrocketed, especially for Branson tourism rose tremendously because, people drive here and back then you couldn't fly hardly, you couldn't go on a cruise ship hardly, you couldn't do anything. So all the competing tourist things going overseas, all that was restricted, etc. So people said, I'm gonna have a vacation. I'm gonna go to Branson and get, have some time at the lake or whatever. I'll be 6 feet away from people or whatever the case may be out on the lake, swimming or whatever or fishing. And so we grew, and our returns on condos were very high. There was new construction going on, as with the large cabins. The developments were coming like crazy. Well, then that's kind of shifted. Have you any views on the current condo situation around the Branson area and how that's going?
I think that they have overbuilt condos and nightly rentals. I see condo prices coming down compared to where they were. I see some people wanting to go back to traditional hotels compared to doing the Airbnb thing. And so I think we hit a peak of condo prices and now they're coming back down. And so yeah, I think the nightly rental whole situation has just been overly done. And I'm really surprised to see anything still being built in that industry because yeah, it's way over. Yeah, with the pricing and stuff, I mean, we've talked about it, the condo pricing, you do the CMA on it, and then, in 30 days, it's completely changed because of people selling. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of chasing the market down. I've been in real estate long enough that, I started in 2006, which, immediately in 2007, and, I was in St. Louis, there was 13.5% unemployment, and they had just closed two of the Chrysler plants there in Fenton, and everything was just it was bad. Of course, that's when we got the bulk of them were either short sales or foreclosures going on, and it reshaped our whole business, and so that's kind of where I cut my teeth, so to speak. And then when the market went up, you just take that professionalism and just carry it through when the water level's higher, so to speak, and things are going well. And then of course we have the market where, like we mentioned in COVID, it was a bidding war on listings, right? I mean, absolutely nuts. And people hated it, yet it is what it is. And then now, you can't keep your price up there because we don't have that demand that we did at that point. So it's a little bit different that way. So, and the cost of living plays into it, et cetera. On and on it goes. And you're absolutely right in the condo market right now. I had an investor that asked me, should I buy now in a certain area? And I said, honestly, I would kind of wait and see because I don't think the bottom has been hit yet. And it's not that we want to play the market yet. Do you want a depreciating asset right now and that type of thing? So we just had a hard discussion, right? And so we almost have to, and people appreciate that, right? When we actually, in a sense, turn down business, it's an integrity issue for us because I would want the same advice if I was making that decision, if I didn't know what was going on, right?
Exactly.
So those kind of things, all in all. So well, great. So those things are those are awesome. What are some things that you do? You've talked about, your care for people. You've talked about, the things that you do. Are there any other things that you feel like that you do uniquely that are uniquely Rose in this business?
I don't know. Uniquely Rose. I think
Uniquely Rose.
everything I
It's
do is
funny, your name's Rose, but you work for a Magnolia, right? So it's all about the flowers.
right, exactly. Something that I do that I just started doing was property management. So I'm really enjoying that from, my care and loving side of me. I'm constantly doing little drop bys to usually just whether it's a past client or a random person or I'm working on some even for my tenants. I like to give back to them just even, just little things. And so, my biggest thing is just being in the community and showing that you care and just having that heart. That's usually what people tell me is that they can tell that I have a good heart. And I do have, you were talking earlier about listings and stuff, and I do have a listing coming up that the guy has been talking to me over a year. And he picked me because I'm in the community so much. And that's why he picked me as his agent. So that's really, I feel like you don't find very many agents that's in the community as much as I am or involved in nonprofits as much as I am, just because that's where my heart is. And so, yeah, I'm a dog mom and just like to be out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, all right. Well, if people want to reach you from this podcast, once they come to know, love, and trust you, like I do, what's the best way to contact you, Rose? How would you like them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can always call me. My number's 417-331-6426. Call or text me. That's the best way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, in closing, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience today at all?
I'm not sure. But, just stay true to who you are and find a business that works around you. Real estate's not for everybody, but it's great for other people. And if you're looking to buy or sell, find an agent that you can trust. Don't just go with the one that you see the most or something like that. Some of the people that are the best are the ones that can tell you the truth like we've done. If they can decline business and keep their integrity, that's huge to me. I want to keep my integrity and my morals in check and be able to lay my head down at night without any worries. So that's what I always strive for every day is when I go to sleep that I know I did no wrong. So
That's awesome. I love that. Well, Rose, always a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you for being on the podcast
thank you.
today. I really appreciate it. Well, you have a great week. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.